My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I followed Marcus down the hallway. The hotel manager kept glancing back at me, his face drained of color, lips pressed into a thin line like he was about to deliver news of a death. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack through bone. We weren't heading to his office. We were going to the security room, and every step felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff I couldn't see yet. "Sir, please understand," Marcus whispered, his voice cracking. "I could lose my job for this. But if someone did this to me, I'd want to know." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. My dress shoes clicked against the marble floor, each sound echoing too loud in my ears. I'd been staying at this hotel for 3 days on a business trip to Boston. Everything had been normal. Fine. Perfect even. Sarah had kissed me goodbye at the airport, told me she loved me, reminded me to call when I landed. That was 72 hours ago. Marcus swiped his key card and pushed open a door marked "Staff Only." Inside, a wall of security monitors flickered with grainy footage of hallways, the lobby, the parking garage. He sat down at the desk, his fingers trembling as they moved across the keyboard. I stood behind him, my throat so tight I couldn't swallow. "This morning, a woman checked in," he said quietly, pulling up footage from the front desk. "Room 412. She used the name Jennifer Walsh, but sir, I recognized her immediately. The screen showed the lobby from earlier today. There she was. Sarah. My wife of 12 years. Her blonde hair pulled back in that messy bun she always wore on casual days. She was wearing the blue jacket I bought her last Christmas. And she wasn't alone. Have you ever had a moment where your brain just refuses to process what your eyes are showing you? Where reality splits in two and you're standing in both versions at once? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story." The man standing next to her at the check-in desk had his hand on the small of her back. Possessive. Familiar. Intimate. Marcus zoomed in on his face and my stomach dropped through the floor. "David. My business partner. My best friend since junior year of college." "There's more," Marcus said, and I heard genuine pain in his voice. He pulled up another folder. "This isn't the first time. They've been here 6 times in the last 4 months. Always the same room. Always checking in when you're traveling for work." The monitors blurred as tears burned my eyes. I blinked them back hard, refusing to let them fall. 6 times. 4 months. While I was in Chicago, Atlanta, Denver. Building our company. Building our future. Our dream. Marcus pulled up footage from the hallway outside room 412, timestamped 2 hours ago. Sarah and David walking to the room laughing about something. His arm around her shoulders. Her looking up at him the way she used to look at me. "Why are you showing me this?" My voice came out strangled, barely recognizable. "Because they're still here," Marcus said. "Right now. Room 412. 4th floor." The air left my lungs. They were here. In this building. Right now. While I was 3 floors down in room 108, completely clueless, probably exactly where they wanted me. That's when the worst thought hit me, the one that made my knees buckle and my vision tunnel. David was the one who recommended this hotel. David was the one who insisted I stay here for the Boston meetings. David was the one who set up this entire trip. "Sir," Marcus said, standing up and putting a steady hand on my shoulder. "What do you want to do?" I looked at the monitor showing the closed door of room 412. Behind that door was everything I thought I knew, everything I'd built my entire adult life on, shattering into pieces I'd never be able to put back together. But something cold and sharp settled in my chest, pushing out the shock and the grief. Something that felt like clarity for the first time in months, maybe years. "I need to see something first," I said, my voice steady now. Scary steady. "Pull up every piece of footage you have of them. Every visit. I need to see it all." Marcus nodded slowly, understanding flickering across his face. Because suddenly, things were clicking into place. The late nights David said he was working on accounts. The way Sarah always knew exactly when I'd be traveling before I even told her. The strange phone call she'd step outside to take. Her insisting I stay at this specific hotel, saying she'd read amazing reviews online. They hadn't just betrayed me. They planned this. Orchestrated it. And the most terrifying part was realizing I had no idea what else they'd been planning. Marcus pulled up a spreadsheet on his computer and my blood turned to ice. Every single one of their hotel visits matched perfectly with days I'd been out of town for business. But there was one date that stood out. One visit that happened 3 weeks ago, the same day I'd signed the expansion papers for our company. The same day David had access to all our financial accounts. "Oh God," I whispered. "What else have they done?" 12 years ago, I met Sarah at a coffee shop near campus. She was studying psychology, drowning in textbooks, and I accidentally spilled my latte all over her notes. I thought she'd scream at me, but she laughed instead. That laugh. It sounded like wind chimes in summer mornings. She had this way of tilting her head when she smiled that made my chest feel too small for my heart. "You owe me a coffee and new notes," she'd said, still grinning. "I'm thinking this might take several study sessions to replace." I fell for her that day. Hard and fast and stupid. We got married 3 years later in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard. Nothing fancy. Just family and close friends. David was my best man. He gave this toast about how lucky I was, how Sarah was the kind of woman you built a life around. Everyone cried. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table and whispered that she couldn't wait to grow old with me. I believed every word. Our life was simple but good. We bought a tiny house in suburbia with a mortgage that scared us both. Sarah worked at a counseling center helping kids with anxiety. I started the consulting business with David, working 80-hour weeks to get it off the ground. Money was tight those first few years. We ate pasta 4 nights a week and shared one car. But we were happy. Or at least I thought we were. 5 years in, the business finally took off. Government contracts. Corporate clients. Suddenly we had money. Real money. We upgraded the house, traded in the old Honda for something new. Sarah quit her job, said she wanted to focus on us, on building the life we'd always dreamed about. "You work so hard," she'd say, massaging my shoulders after 16-hour days. "Let me take care of everything else. You just focus on growing the company." I thought I was lucky. I thought I had a partner who understood the sacrifice, who supported the dream. 7 years in, David went through a nasty divorce. His wife Lisa left him for someone she met at her gym. He was destroyed, drinking too much, barely keeping it together. Sarah and I had him over for dinner 3 times a week. She'd cook his favorite meals, tell him he deserved better, that he'd find real love someday. "Your family," Sarah told him one night, hugging him at our front door, "will always be here for you." I remember feeling proud of her compassion. Proud that my wife cared so much about my best friend's pain. Looking back now, I wondered when it started. Was it then? Was it earlier? Were there signs I was too blind or too stupid or too trusting to see? The business exploded over the next few years. We landed a massive contract with a tech firm. David handled the finances while I managed client relations. Perfect partnership. We trusted each other completely. Never questioned each other's decisions. That's what 20 years of friendship bought you. 3 months ago, David came to me with an idea. Expand to Boston. Big opportunity. Huge potential contracts. But it would require travel, lots of it. Meetings with investors, site visits, networking events. "I'll hold down the fort here," David had said, clapping me on the back. "You're the face of the company anyway. Go charm those Boston executives." Sarah had been supportive. More than supportive. She'd practically pushed me out the door. "This is your dream, honey," she'd said, packing my suitcase for that first trip. "Don't worry about things here. I'll keep everything running smooth at home." She'd even suggested this hotel. Said she'd found it online, great reviews, perfect location for the meetings. She'd booked it for me herself. How long had I been the idiot in my own life? Standing in that security room watching Marcus pull up months of footage, I realized something that made my skin crawl. This wasn't a sudden affair. This wasn't 2 people accidentally falling into something they couldn't control. This was calculated. Methodical. They'd used my travel schedule like a playbook. Every city I visited for work, they had their time together. Every success I celebrated, they'd been planning behind my back. And the expansion to Boston? That was an opportunity. That was them getting me out of the way for something bigger. 3 days ago, I'd landed at Logan Airport with nothing but excitement in my chest. The Boston expansion was everything David and I had been working toward. 10 years of grinding, of sacrificing, of building something from nothing, and finally we were about to break into the Northeast market. This was supposed to be the victory lap. Sarah had driven me to the airport back home. She'd been chatty, affectionate even. Kissed me twice before I got out of the car. "I'm going to miss you," she'd said, her hand lingering on my cheek. "Call me when you land?" "Always do," I'd replied. She'd smiled, but now I remembered something about that smile. It hadn't quite reached her eyes. The hotel was exactly as she'd described it. Boutique place, historic building with modern renovations. Marcus had checked me in personally, making small talk about the weather and local restaurants. Professional. Friendly. Normal. I'd unpacked in room 108, a ground floor accommodation with a view of the courtyard. Nothing special, but comfortable enough for a week-long stay. I called Sarah like I promised. "How's the room?" she'd asked. "Perfect. You picked well. I always do, she'd said, and I swear I heard something else in her voice. Something I couldn't name then but understood now. Satisfaction. That first night, I'd had dinner with potential investors. Everything went smooth. They loved our pitch, loved the projections David had prepared. We were talking millions and new contracts. I texted David the good news, and he'd replied with champagne emojis and congratulations. I texted Sarah too. Told her I missed her, that I couldn't wait to come home and celebrate. She'd responded an hour later. So proud of you, baby. Get some rest. Big week ahead. The second day, more meetings. More success. Everything was clicking into place. But I'd started noticing weird things. Small things that didn't make sense until now. Sarah called me 3 times that day. Not unusual, except she never really asked about the meetings. She asked about the hotel. What floor was I on? Had I seen the gym? Was the restaurant downstairs any good? Did I plan to stay in my room all evening? Just curious, she'd said when I asked why she wanted to know. Making sure they're treating you right. That afternoon I'd gone to the gym on the 2nd floor. When I came back to my room, I had this strange feeling someone had been inside. Nothing was stolen or obviously moved, but my laptop was angled differently on the desk. The bathroom door was open when I'd left it closed. I chalked it up to housekeeping. Paranoia from too much coffee. That evening David called. 40-minute conversation about contracts and numbers and projections. Normal business stuff. But then he'd asked something strange. You staying at that hotel Sarah recommended? Yeah, why? No reason. Just wondered if it was worth the price. Might use it next time I'm up there. Next time. Like he hadn't already been here 6 times. The 3rd day yesterday, Sarah had been different on the phone. Distant. She'd cut our conversation short, said she had a headache and needed to lie down. I'd felt guilty for being away, for putting work before her comfort. I love you, I'd said. Love you too, she'd replied, but the words sounded hollow. Automatic. Last night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, bothered by something I couldn't identify. Around 2 in the morning I'd gotten up for water. Walked past the elevator bay and saw Marcus doing rounds. He'd looked at me strangely, opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then just nodded and kept walking. Now I understood. He'd already known. He'd seen Sarah check in with David while I was in meetings. He'd been wrestling with whether to tell me. This morning I'd had breakfast at the hotel restaurant. Sat by the window, reviewing notes for my afternoon presentation. That's when Marcus approached my table, his face pale and serious. Sir, could I speak with you privately? It's urgent. And now here I was, in a security room, watching my entire life unravel on grainy footage. Watching my wife and my best friend walk into room 412 at 11:37 this morning. Watching them kiss in the hallway before the door closed. The timestamp on the monitor showed current time. 2:14 p.m. They'd been in that room for almost 3 hours. Marcus handed me a folder. This is everything. Check-in receipts. Security logs. I made copies before I came to find you. My hands shook as I opened it. 6 hotel stays. All charged to a credit card I didn't recognize. But the name on the account made my vision blur. The card belonged to our business. David had been expensing their affair. Using company money to betray me. There's something else, Marcus said quietly. He pulled up footage from 2 weeks ago. Sarah and David in the hotel bar having drinks. But they weren't alone. There was a third person at their table. A man in an expensive suit, sliding papers across to David. I don't know who he is, Marcus said. But I remember thinking it looked like a business meeting. Very formal. Very serious. I zoomed in on the papers, but the resolution wasn't clear enough to read them. But I saw David's signature. Saw him shake the stranger's hand. What else had David been doing while I was building our dream? Marcus leaned back in his chair, running both hands through his hair. The man looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. I understood the feeling. I've worked in hotels for 15 years, he said quietly. You see stuff. Divorces waiting to happen. Cheating spouses. Business deals going sideways. Usually I keep my mouth shut. Not my circus, not my monkeys, you know? I nodded, unable to speak. But when she checked in this morning and I saw your last name on her ID, something clicked. He pulled up my check-in record on the screen. You showed me your anniversary photo when you arrived. Remember? That picture of you and your wife on the beach. I did remember. I'd been fumbling with my wallet and the photo had slipped out. Sarah and me in Hawaii celebrating 10 years of marriage. Both of us tan and smiling and in love. Or at least I thought we were. That's how I recognized her, Marcus continued. Same woman, same smile. but checking in with a different man, using a fake name. I felt sick. Why didn't you tell me immediately? The question came out harsher than I meant it. Honestly, I spent 3 hours talking myself out of it. He looked down at his hands. Hotels have rules. Guess privacy. I could get fired or sued for revealing this stuff. And what if I was wrong? What if she was his sister or cousin or business partner and I just destroyed your marriage over nothing? But you checked. I checked. He pulled up the older footage. Went through weeks of recordings. Found them showing up together, always the same room, always when you were logged as traveling for work based on your check-in patterns at other hotels in our chain. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. I watched the screen as he played video after video. Different days, same pattern. Sarah and David arriving separately but within minutes of each other. Meeting in the lobby. Taking the elevator up together. Sometimes she'd already be in the room and he'd arrive with takeout bags. Other times they'd come in together, laughing about something. In one clip from 6 weeks ago, David had his arm around her waist as they waited for the elevator. She leaned into him, comfortable and familiar. Like they'd done this 1,000 times. Maybe they had. I have a daughter, Marcus said suddenly. She's 8. My wife and I are solid, but I think about stuff like this happening to her someday. Someone lying to her, using her, betraying her trust. Makes me want to punch walls. He looked at me with genuine compassion. If someone was doing this to my kid, I'd want someone to tell her. Even if it cost them their job. Are you enjoying this story? If you are, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps us keep bringing you these real-life stories. Thank you, I managed to say. The words felt inadequate. This stranger had risked everything to give me the truth. Meanwhile, the two people I trusted most in the world had been destroying me. What do you want to do? Marcus asked. I can call the police if you want. Or security. Or I can just walk away and let you handle this however you need to. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Every fiber of my being wanted to storm up to room 412 right now. Kick down the door. Scream. Break things. Make them feel even a fraction of the pain ripping through my chest. But that's what they'd expect. That's what they probably wanted. An emotional explosion they could use against me later. He was crazy, Your Honor. Violent. Unstable. No. I needed to be smart about this. I need more information first, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. You said they met with someone 2 weeks ago. Can you pull up more footage from around that time? I need to see if there are other meetings. Other people involved. Marcus nodded, understanding immediately. You think this is bigger than just an affair. I know it is. I pulled out my phone, opening my email. Started scrolling through messages from David over the past 3 months. He's been pushing me to travel more. Always has reasons why I need to be the one going to meetings while he stays back. Said it's because I'm better with clients, but that was never true before. I found what I was looking for. An email from 6 weeks ago. David informing me he'd restructured some of our accounts for better tax efficiency. Needed my signature on a few forms. I'd sign them without reading carefully because I trusted him. What had I actually signed? Can you do me a favor? I asked Marcus. Can you find out what name that credit card is actually registered under? The one they've been using for the rooms. He typed for a moment. Says here it's a business account. Company name is Marsh & Associates. My company. Our company. The one David and I built together. But I'd never seen these charges. Never approved them. Which meant David had set up accounts I didn't know about. How much have they spent here total? I asked. Marcus pulled up the records. 6 days. Roughly $3,000 including room service, bar charges, spa services. $3,000 of my money. Funding their betrayal. There's more footage, Marcus said hesitantly. From the bar. Multiple nights. Want to see it? I nodded, even though every cell in my body screamed to stop. To not see any more. But I needed to understand the full scope of what they'd done. He played the videos. Sarah and David at the hotel bar, looking like any other couple. Holding hands across the table. Feeding each other appetizers. In one clip, David kissed her neck and she laughed, that same laugh she used to save for me. In another clip from 3 weeks ago they were arguing. Sarah looked upset, gesturing angrily. David grabbed her hand, said something that made her face soften. She nodded, wiped her eyes and kissed him. That was the night before you signed the expansion contracts, Marcus said quietly. The pieces clicked together like a horrifying puzzle. They'd fought about something. About me? About the business? About whatever they were planning. And the next day, I'd signed papers that gave David more control over our accounts while I was traveling. I need to make some calls, I said, standing up. My legs felt shaky, but my mind was crystal clear now. Can you keep monitoring room 412? Let me know when they leave. Already set up an alert on my phone, Marcus said. The second that door opens, you'll know. I headed toward the door, then stopped. Turned back to Marcus. Why did you really tell me? The real reason. He was quiet for a long moment. My dad, he finally said. 20 years ago, my mom cheated on him. Everyone knew except him. Family, friends, neighbors. They all kept quiet because they didn't want to get involved. When he finally found out, he was devastated. Not just by the betrayal, but by the fact that so many people had watched it happen and said nothing. His voice cracked slightly. He told me before he died that the worst part wasn't what my mom did. It was feeling like the whole world had made him a fool. I understood. God, I understood that feeling exactly. I didn't want to be another person who stayed quiet, Marcus finished. I shook his hand, gripping hard. Thank you. Whatever happens, thank you. As I walked back to my room, my phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Hope your meetings are going well. Miss you so much. Can't wait for you to come home. The message was time-stamped 3 minutes ago. She'd sent it while she was in that room with him, while they were together. But there was something else in that message that made my blood run cold. She wanted me to come home. Wanted this trip to end. What was waiting for me back home? My hands were steady as I sat on the edge of my hotel bed and opened my laptop. Funny how betrayal can do that. Shock gives way to something colder. Something that thinks instead of feels. I logged into our company's financial system. The main accounts looked normal. Client payments, operating expenses, payroll. Everything exactly as it should be. But I'd been doing this long enough to know that people who steal don't take from the obvious places. I started digging deeper. Clicked into the subsidiary accounts David had set up last year for tax purposes. My stomach dropped with each screen. 3 accounts I'd never seen before. All under our company umbrella, all with David listed as the sole authorized user. Transfers going out monthly, always right after major client payments came in. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger immediate red flags. 5,000 here. 10,000 there. But when I added it up over the past 8 months, it totaled nearly $200,000. $200,000 vanishing into accounts I couldn't access. I screenshotted everything, my hands moving on autopilot while my brain tried to process the scale of this. This wasn't just an affair. This was systematic theft from our company. From me. Where was the money going? I clicked through transaction details, following the trail. Most of it was transferred to an LLC I'd never heard of. Kensington Holdings Group. I Googled it. The business was registered 4 months ago in Delaware. Owners listed as anonymous behind a corporate veil. But the registered agent's address was in Boston. Boston. Where David had insisted I needed to come for this expansion. Where he'd set up meetings that suddenly felt less like opportunities and more like distractions. My phone buzzed. Marcus. They ordered room service. Champagne and dessert. Looks like they're celebrating something. Celebrating. While I sat 3 floors below them, discovering that my best friend had been robbing me blind. I opened my email and started searching for anything related to the expansion deal. Found the contracts David had prepared. Read through them carefully this time, actually paying attention instead of just trusting his summary. There. Buried in section 14. Language about profit sharing that didn't match what we discussed. The Boston office would operate as a separate entity with its own financial structure. David would have complete operational control while I was listed as a consulting partner, with limited access to the accounts. I'd signed this. 3 weeks ago, I'd put my name on papers that essentially gave David a separate business he could drain without my oversight. How long had he been planning this? When did my best friend of 20 years decide I was just a mark to be exploited? I thought back to college. We'd met freshman year, bonded over late-night study sessions and a shared dream of starting our own company someday. I'd been the idea guy, the one who could sell anything to anyone. David had been the numbers genius, the one who could make budgets dance and taxes disappear legally. We'd been broke together. Struggled together. Built the business from nothing together. Or had I built it while he waited for the right moment to take it? My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Ethan Marsh? A woman's voice. Professional. Clip. Yes. Who's this? My name is Patricia Chin. I'm a forensic accountant with the Massachusetts State Business Bureau. I've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. My blood went cold. What's this about? We've received some flagged transactions associated with your business accounts. Unusual patterns that triggered our monitoring systems. I need to schedule a time to discuss them with you. What kind of patterns? I'd prefer to discuss this in person, Mr. Marsh. But I can tell you that we're investigating possible financial fraud involving your company and several shell corporations. One of them is registered to a David Brennan. Is that your business partner? The room started spinning. The state was investigating us. Investigating David. Which meant this was bigger than I'd even imagined. When can we meet? I asked. I'm actually in Boston this week. Tomorrow morning? 10 a.m.? I'll be there. She gave me an address and hung up. I sat there staring at my phone trying to breathe. David wasn't just stealing from me. He was doing it in a way that could bring down our entire company. That could implicate me in whatever scheme he was running. And Sarah, was she part of the financial fraud too? Or just the affair? I pulled up the hotel footage Marcus had given me access to on my phone. Watched the clip of Sarah, David, and the mysterious businessman again. Paused it. Zoomed in on the papers on the table. The angle was bad, but I could make out a logo. Corporate seal. The same one I'd seen on the Kensington Holdings documents. So Sarah knew. She was part of it. Whatever it was. My phone buzzed with another text. This time from David. Hey man, how's Boston? Investor meetings going well? The casualness of it. The fake friendship. Like he wasn't currently in bed with my wife 4 floors above me. Like he hadn't been systematically destroying everything we'd built. I typed back. Great. Closing some big deals. Might stay an extra few days. His response came immediately. That's awesome. Take your time. Everything's smooth here. I bet it was. With me gone, he had free rein to do whatever he wanted. Move more money. Sign more documents. Build his exit strategy. But I wasn't supposed to know any of this yet. I was supposed to be the clueless husband and business partner, too busy chasing contracts to notice the knife sliding between my ribs. Another buzz. Marcus again. Just got a call from room 412. They've extended their stay. Won't check out until tomorrow morning now. They were staying the night. Together. In a room paid for with my money. Celebrating whatever they'd accomplished. I looked at the time. 4:30 p.m. I had roughly 16 hours before they checked out. 16 hours before they went back to their separate lives and continued playing their roles. 16 hours to figure out my next move. I called my lawyer. Personal attorney, the one who'd handled my will and the prenup Sarah had fought against signing 12 years ago. Funny how she'd hated that prenup. Said it meant I didn't trust her. That real love didn't need legal protection. I'd been weak. Revised it. Made it softer. Left loopholes because I wanted her to know I believed in us. Martin, I said when he answered. I need to see you. Tomorrow. First thing. And I need you to start looking into some things tonight. What's going on, Ethan? I think my business partner is committing fraud. And my wife is helping him. There was a long pause. Are you sure? I have proof. Financial records, security footage, everything. But I need you to tell me what I'm dealing with legally. What my options are. How to protect myself. I'll clear my morning. Send me everything you have. I spent the next 2 hours forwarding documents, writing detailed timelines, organizing evidence. By the time I finished, the sun had set outside my window. My room was dark except for the glow of my laptop screen. Marcus sent another update. They're in the hotel restaurant now. Having dinner. Having dinner. Like a normal couple. Like they had every right to be together. I thought about going down there. Confronting them publicly. But no. Not yet. Because there was still one piece of this puzzle I didn't understand. The timeline felt wrong. If David had been planning this for months, why now? What had changed? What was the endgame? I pulled up Sarah's social media. Scrolled through her recent posts. Photos of our house, her morning coffee, inspirational quotes about strength and new beginnings. New beginnings. Then I found it. A post from 2 months ago that I barely glanced at when she'd shared it. A photo of a beach house with a caption, "Dreaming of coastal living. Someday soon." I clicked through to the real estate listing. A luxury property in Cape Cod. 4 bedrooms, ocean view, $2 million. The property had sold 3 weeks ago. Right around the time I'd signed those expansion contracts. I checked the public records. The buyer was listed as Kensington Holdings Group. They'd bought a house together. With my money. While I was signing papers that gave them access to more. This wasn't just theft. It was an exit strategy. They were building a life together with everything they'd stolen from me. My phone lit up with one more text from Sarah. Sweet dreams, honey. Love you so much. But she wasn't at home. She was upstairs with him, probably already in bed, probably laughing about how easy this had all been. I turned off my phone and sat in the darkness, letting the cold fury settle deep into my bones. They thought they'd won. Thought they'd been so careful, so clever. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated how much losing everything could sharpen a man's focus. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face on those security monitors. Saw David's hand on her back. Saw them walking into that room like they owned the world. Maybe they thought they did. By 5 a.m. I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to rage or break or give them the satisfaction of seeing me destroyed. I was going to be smart. Calculate every move like a chess game where I was already 3 steps ahead. Martin called at 6:30. I've been up all night reviewing everything you sent. Then this is bad. Really bad. But it's also airtight evidence if we play this right. Tell me. David's been committing wire fraud, embezzlement, and possibly money laundering through those shell companies. The state's already investigating, which means they have their own evidence. If this goes to trial, he's looking at serious prison time. My chest tightened. Prison. My best friend going to prison. Except he wasn't my friend anymore. Maybe he never had been. What about Sarah? I asked. Harder to prove her direct involvement in the fraud unless we can show she knew about the financial crimes. But the affair combined with the timing of certain transactions? A good lawyer could argue she was complicit. At minimum, the prenup you signed has an infidelity clause. She gets nothing in the divorce. Nothing. After 12 years of marriage, she'd walk away with nothing because she couldn't keep her legs closed. There's something else, Martin continued. That house in Cape Cod? It was purchased with company funds that were fraudulently transferred. Which means it's technically stolen property. You can claim it in asset recovery. I almost laughed. They'd bought their dream home with my money, and now I could take it away. What do you need me to do? I asked. Meet with the state investigator. Give them everything. Then let me handle the divorce paperwork. Don't contact Sarah or David directly. Don't tip them off that you know anything. We need them to feel safe until we're ready to move. How long? A week. Maybe 2. Can you keep up the act that long? Could I pretend my life wasn't burning down? Could I smile and play the fool while they celebrated their victory? Yes, I said. Because I had to. Because this wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about survival. I showered and dressed in my best suit. Had to look the part for the meeting with Patricia Chin. Had to look like a successful businessman who definitely wasn't falling apart inside. Marcus called at 7:15. They're having breakfast in their room. Room service just delivered. Thanks. Keep me updated. You okay, man? Was I? I wasn't sure what okay meant anymore. But I was functioning. Moving forward. That had to count for something. Getting there, I said. The meeting with Patricia Chin lasted 3 hours. She had files inches thick, spreadsheets that made my head spin, transaction records that painted a picture of systematic theft going back almost a year. When did you first notice irregularities? She asked. Yesterday, I admitted. I trusted my partner completely. Never had reason to check his work. She nodded, sympathy crossing her face. That's how most financial fraud works. The criminal exploits trust. We see it all the time. Criminal. That's what David was now. Not my friend. Not my partner. A criminal. What happens next? I asked. We're building a case for federal prosecution. Wire fraud across state lines gives us jurisdiction. I need you to maintain business as usual. Don't let him know we're investigating. Can you do that? Second person asking me to lie today. To pretend. To act. I can do whatever you need. She handed me her card. If he tries to move any more money or makes any unusual requests, you contact me immediately. Don't confront him. Don't try to stop him yourself. Let us handle it. I left that meeting feeling lighter somehow. The authorities knew. They were building a case. This wasn't just my word against his anymore. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Good morning, baby. How did you sleep? I stared at those words. The casual affection. The bald-faced lies. She was probably still in bed with him while texting me. Probably thought she was so clever. I typed back. Slept great. Productive day ahead. Love you. Each word tasted like poison. Another text came through. David this time. Hey, got some paperwork that needs your signature. Nothing urgent, but when you get back, we should go over the Q4 projections. More papers. More opportunities for him to steal from me. Sounds good. I'll be back Friday. That gave me 3 more days here. 3 days to prepare. To gather every shred of evidence. To build my case so tight they couldn't slip through. Marcus sent an update at noon. They checked out. Left together in his car. So it was over. They were going back to their regular lives. Back to pretending. But I had something they didn't know about. I had Marcus's recordings. Patricia's investigation. Martin's legal strategy. I had the truth, and truth was a weapon when wielded correctly. I spent the afternoon calling clients, securing relationships, making sure that when the company inevitably collapsed under David's fraud, I'd have options. People who'd work with me independent of the business. Safety nets. That evening, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Almost sent it to voicemail, but something made me answer. Ethan Marsh? A man's voice. Older. Uncertain. Yes. My name is Richard Brennan. I'm David's father. I think we need to talk. My heart stopped. David's father. The man I'd had dinner with dozens of times over the years. Who treated me like a second son. About what? I asked carefully. About what my son is doing. About the mistakes he's making. About things I should have told you a long time ago. The fear in his voice was real. Bruh. I'm listening, I said. Not over the phone. Can you meet me? Tomorrow? There's a diner on Maple Street back home. I'll be there at 8 a.m. I'm in Boston. I won't be back until Friday. Then Friday. Damn. Please, Ethan. There are things you need to know. Things about David that I've kept quiet about for too long. He hung up before I could ask what he meant. What secrets did David's father know? What had he kept quiet about? I looked at my phone, at the messages from Sarah and David, at the evidence files saved in my cloud storage. This wasn't just a betrayal anymore. This was something deeper. Something that had roots going back further than I'd imagined. Friday couldn't come fast enough. Friday morning arrived cold and gray. I checked out of the hotel at dawn, thanking Marcus one final time. He'd hugged me, this stranger who'd changed my life by telling me a truth no one else had the courage to share. You're going to be okay, he'd said. Guys like you always land on your feet. I wished I had his confidence. The 3-hour drive home felt like driving toward an execution. My execution. The death of everything I'd built. But I kept my hands steady on the wheel and my mind focused on the meeting ahead. Richard Brennan was already at the diner when I arrived. He looked older than I remembered. Grayer. His hands shook slightly as he lifted his coffee cup. Thank you for coming, he said as I slid into the booth across from him. What did you need to tell me? He took a breath. Let it out slow. David's been lying his whole life. Little things at first. Stealing lunch money in middle school and blaming other kids. Cheating on Tess. As he got older, the lies got bigger. More elaborate. My stomach tightened. When he was in college with you, he was arrested for credit card fraud. Did you know that? I shook my head, speechless. His mother and I paid off the victim. Got the charges dropped. Made it go away because we didn't want it to ruin his future. We thought we were helping him. Richard's voice cracked. We weren't. We just taught him he could get away with anything. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw what he did to Lisa. His ex-wife. She didn't leave him for another man. She left because she caught him stealing from her family's business. He'd been siphoning money for years. She was going to press charges, but he convinced her to just divorce him quietly instead. Told her if she went public, he'd make sure her family's reputation was destroyed. The diner felt too hot. Too small. I couldn't breathe right. When Lisa called me last week and told me David was seeing someone new, someone married, I had a bad feeling. Then she mentioned your name. Said she'd seen you on the news for some business award and recognized you as David's partner. Richard leaned forward. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Not after what he did to her. Not knowing he's doing the same thing to you. Does he know you're here? I asked. No. And he can't find out. He stopped talking to me 2 years ago when I confronted him about the money he stole from Lisa. Called me a judgmental old man who didn't understand modern business. Modern business. That's what David called fraud and theft and destroying people's lives. There's one more thing, Richard said, pulling out his phone. He showed me a photo. David and Sarah at some restaurant. But the timestamp was from 3 years ago. 3 years. They've been doing this for 3 years. How did you get this? My voice sounded hollow. Lisa hired a private investigator during their divorce. Found evidence David was already cheating on her with multiple women. This photo was in her file. She didn't know who the woman was at the time, but when I saw your wife's photo online after that award ceremony, I recognized her. 3 years of lies. 3 years of betrayal. While I'd been working myself to exhaustion building our company, David had been sleeping with my wife and planning to rob me blind. "I'm sorry, Ethan," Richard said, and tears were running down his weathered face. "I'm sorry I raised a son who could do this. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry I tried to protect him when I should have protected his victims." I couldn't speak, could barely think. The timeline had just exploded. This wasn't a recent affair. This was calculated, premeditated, long-term. They'd been playing me for years. My phone rang. "Sarah." Perfect timing. "I should take this," I said to Richard. He nodded, understanding. I stepped outside into the cold morning air and answered. Hey baby. You're coming home today, right? I'm making your favorite dinner tonight. Pot roast." The normalcy in her voice made me want to vomit. "Actually, something came up. I need to stay in Boston through the weekend. Client emergency." "Oh." Disappointment. Fake disappointment. "Okay. Well, I'll miss you. David stopped by yesterday to drop off some papers for you. I put them on your desk." Of course he did. Probably more documents for me to sign without reading. More ways to steal from me. "Thanks. I'll look at them when I get home." "Love you," she said. "Love you too," I lied. I hung up and stood there shaking. Not from cold. From rage so pure it felt like fire in my veins. Richard came outside. "You okay?" "No. But I will be." I looked at him. "Can you send me everything Lisa's investigator found?" "All of it." "Already forwarded it to your email while you were on the phone." "Smart man." "Thank you," I said. "For telling me. For risking your relationship with your son to do the right thing." "I lost my son a long time ago," Richard said sadly. "The person he is now? That's not the boy I raised. That's someone who learned all the wrong lessons from life." I drove home in a daze. Pulled into my driveway and sat in the car staring at the house. The house Sarah and I had bought together. The house where she'd been entertaining David while I was away. The house that was just another lie in a life built on lies. The papers David had left were exactly what I expected. Transfer documents. Signature forms. Legal jargon designed to confuse and obscure the fact that he was taking more control of company assets. I didn't sign them. Instead, I took photos of every page and sent them to Martin and Patricia Chin. That night, alone in my house, I opened my laptop and watched the security footage one more time. Made myself see it. Really see it. Sarah and David together. Laughing. Kissing. Celebrating their deception. Then I opened the files Richard had sent. 3 years of evidence. Photos of them at restaurants, hotels, even at David's apartment. Bank records showing money David had stolen from Lisa's family, money that had probably funded the early days of his affair with Sarah. There was even a voicemail Lisa had saved. David telling someone on the phone, "Don't worry, he'll never figure it out." The guy's too trusting. Too focused on the business to notice what's happening right under his nose. He'd been talking about me. Laughing about how easy it was to fool me. I played that voicemail 3 times. Let his words sink deep. Let them fuel the cold calculation replacing my grief. Then I did something I hadn't done in days. I smiled. Because they'd made a mistake. A big one. They'd underestimated what a man becomes when he has nothing left to lose. Monday morning, I walked into our office like nothing had changed. Smiled at the receptionist. Grabbed coffee from the break room. Sat at my desk and answered emails. David came in around 9, grinning. "Hey, how was Boston? Close any big deals?" "A few. Good week overall." I kept my voice light. "Easy. You?" "Same old. Boring without you here." He laughed. "Oh, did you get those papers I dropped off?" "Just some routine stuff, but need your signature when you have a minute." "I'll look at them today," I lied. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Great. Hey, let's grab lunch later. Catch up properly." "Sounds good." He walked away whistling. Actually whistling. Like he wasn't a criminal. Like he hadn't been systematically destroying me for years. I waited until he was in his office with the door closed, then called Martin. "It's time," I said quietly. "You sure?" "I'm sure." "Okay. Papers will be served tomorrow morning. Divorce for Sarah, fraud charges filed with the state for David. Federal prosecutors are ready to move once he's arrested. Are you prepared for what comes next? Was anyone ever prepared for their life to explode? As ready as I'll ever be." I spent the rest of the day documenting everything. Every file, every client, every contract. Making sure I had backups of backups. When David's arrest hit the news, clients would panic. I needed to be ready to show them the company was stable. That I'd had no part in his crimes. At lunch, David and I sat at our usual spot. He ordered a burger. Talked about a potential client in New York. Made jokes about me being married to my work. You ever think about what comes next? He asked casually. Like long term? We've been at this 10 years. Built something real. Where do you see us in another 10? The audacity. He was planning his future while actively destroying mine. I think about it sometimes, I said carefully. Why? Just wondering if you ever get tired. Ever want to cash out and do something different? There it was. He was setting up his exit. Probably planning to convince me to sell the company, then run off with Sarah and the money to their Cape Cod house. Not anytime soon, I said. I like what we've built. Want to see it grow. Something flickered across his face. Annoyance? Frustration? Yeah, of course. Just thinking out loud. He changed the subject, but the damage was done. Now I knew his timeline was accelerating. That afternoon, I got a call from Patricia Chin. We're executing the warrant tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. at his residence. I wanted you to know. Will I need to be there? No. Stay away. Let us handle it. But be prepared for media attention. This is a significant case. White-collar fraud, large sums of money. It'll make the news. Great. My humiliation broadcast to everyone I knew. One more thing, Patricia said. We found evidence he was planning to leave the country. Booked tickets to the Cayman Islands for next month. 2 tickets. Him and Sarah. Running away with my money to a place without extradition. Thank you for telling me. I hung up and sat there breathing carefully. Tomorrow morning, everything would change. The secret would be out. David would be arrested. Sarah would be served divorce papers. And I'd be standing in the wreckage trying to figure out how to rebuild. That evening, I went home and packed a bag. Martin had arranged for me to stay at a hotel for a few days once things went public. Give me space from Sarah. Distance from the chaos. She was in the kitchen when I arrived, cooking dinner like she did every night. Playing the devoted wife. You're home early, she said, smiling. Hungry? Starving. I forced myself to sit at the table. To eat the meal she'd prepared. To pretend one last time. Everything okay? She asked. You seem distant lately. The irony. She was asking if I was distant while she'd been sleeping with my best friend for 3 years. Just work stress. The Boston expansion is bigger than I expected. Lots of moving pieces. You work too hard, she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You need to take care of yourself. Maybe we should plan a vacation. Just the two of us. Get away from everything. A vacation. While she and David plan their escape. That sounds nice, I said. Let's talk about it next week. Next week, when she'd be served with divorce papers and realize her entire plan had collapsed. That night I barely slept. Lay in bed next to Sarah, listening to her breathe. Wondering how many nights she'd lain next to me thinking about him. How many times she'd said she loved me while planning my destruction. My alarm went off at 5 a.m. I got up quietly, grabbed my packed bag from the closet and left without waking her. Drove to the hotel Martin had arranged. Checked in using a different name. Sat in the room and waited. At 6:15 my phone rang. Patricia Chin. It's done. David Brennan is in custody. Charged with wire fraud, embezzlement and money laundering. Your wife was present during the arrest. My wife. Not for much longer. What happens now? He'll be arraigned this afternoon. Bail will be set high given the flight risk. We'll be seizing assets connected to the fraud. The house in Cape Cod, several bank accounts. Your company accounts have been frozen pending investigation. Frozen. My company, my livelihood, everything I'd built was frozen. How long until the freeze is lifted? Depends on how quickly we can separate legitimate business assets from stolen funds. Could be weeks. Could be months. You'll need a good forensic accountant. I thanked her and hung up. Turned on the news. And there it was. Breaking story. Local businessman arrested in massive fraud case. David's photo on the screen. Our company name trending on social media. My phone started ringing. Clients. Employees. Reporters. I ignored them all. Except one call. Martin. Divorce papers have been served. Sarah's lawyer called me. She's claiming she had no knowledge of David's crimes. Wants to negotiate. No negotiation. The prenup stands. She gets nothing. She might fight it. Could get messy. I don't care. Let it get messy. She made her choice. I hung up and sat in the silence of that hotel room. Everything I'd built was gone. My marriage. My business partnership. My reputation. All of it destroyed by 2 people I'd trusted with my life. But I was still standing. Broken but breathing. And that meant I could rebuild. If you've been following this story, I'd really appreciate your thoughts in the comments. Your support means everything, and I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. 3 months felt like 3 years. The days blurred together in a haze of legal meetings, depositions, and damage control. But slowly, painfully, things started to shift. David's trial was set for next spring. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Federal prosecutors were confident he'd spend at least 10 years in prison. His lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but David refused. Still thought he could talk his way out of it. Still thought he was smarter than everyone else. Sarah's lawyer pushed hard for a settlement. Claimed she deserved half of everything despite the prenup. Martin shut them down every time. The evidence of her affair was irrefutable. The timeline showing she'd been involved for 3 years destroyed any sympathy a judge might have had. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. 12 years of marriage ended in a courtroom where she wouldn't even look at me. She walked away with nothing but her clothes and her car. Everything else stayed with me. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt empty. The company was harder to save. Once the accounts were unfrozen and forensic accountants separated my money from David's theft, I discovered we were technically bankrupt. He'd stolen more than anyone realized. Nearly $500,000 over 3 years. I could have let it die. Walked away and started fresh somewhere else. But I'd built that company from nothing once. I could do it again. I sold the house. Too many memories, too many ghosts. Downsized to an apartment downtown. Used the profit to stabilize the business. Worked 16-hour days rebuilding client relationships, proving I'd had no knowledge of David's crimes. Some clients left. Couldn't trust the company name anymore. But others stayed. Believed in me. Gave me a chance to prove I was different from my partner. The Cape Cod house was seized and sold. The money went toward restitution for the fraud victims. Turned out David had stolen from more than just me. There were other small businesses, other investors who trusted him. Sarah moved in with her sister. I heard through mutual friends that she was struggling. No job, no money, no prospects. Some people felt sorry for her. I didn't. Richard Brennan called me once a month. Checking in. Apologizing for his son even though it wasn't his fault. We'd meet for coffee and talk about everything except David. It helped, having someone who understood the betrayal from a different angle. Marcus, the hotel manager, sent me a Christmas card. Simple message, hope you're healing. You deserved better. I kept that card on my desk. A reminder that strangers sometimes showed more integrity than family. By month 4, the media attention had mostly died down. I wasn't the hot story anymore. Life moved on. The world forgot. But I couldn't forget. Didn't want to forget. Because forgetting meant the lesson was wasted. One afternoon in late February, I was working late at the office when my assistant buzzed. Someone here to see you. No appointment. I almost said no. But something made me curious. Send them in. The door opened and in walked Richard Brennan. But he wasn't alone. He had an envelope in his hands, yellowed with age. I'm sorry to come unannounced, he said. But I found something. Something my father left me before he died. I think you need to see it. We sat in my office and he handed me the envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten in shaky script. Dear Richard, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And there are things I should have told you when I was alive but didn't have the courage. I made mistakes, son. Big ones. I trusted the wrong people. Let them convince me to ignore warning signs. I chose comfort over truth and it cost me everything. The letter went on. Richard's father had been in business with someone he thought was his friend. That friend had embezzled money, destroyed the business, ran off with Richard's father's wife. The parallels were eerie. History repeating itself across generations. My father became bitter, Richard said quietly. Spent the rest of his life angry. Pushed everyone away. Died alone in a nursing home with nothing but his resentment. Why are you showing me this? Because at the end of the letter, he wrote something I wish I'd read 20 years ago. Richard pointed to the final paragraph. The betrayal isn't what destroys you. It's what you become after. I chose bitterness. I chose isolation. I chose to let them win by giving up on everything good in life. Don't make my mistake. Don't let the worst people you know define who you become. The greatest revenge is building something better from the ashes they left behind. I read those words 3 times. Let them sink deep. Your grandfather wrote this? I asked. The year before he died. I found it in his safe deposit box last week. Seeing what David did to you, reading what my father went through, I realized some wounds run deeper than we know. Some patterns repeat unless someone breaks the cycle. We sat in silence for a while. Two men connected by betrayal across 3 generations. "Thank you for showing me this," I finally said. "Thank you for not becoming what my father became. For choosing different." After he left, I sat alone with that letter. Thought about bitterness and revenge and the kind of man I wanted to be. I could spend the rest of my life hating David and Sarah. Could let their betrayal poison everything I touched. Could become a cautionary tale about what happens when you trust the wrong people. Or I could choose something else. 6 months after everything fell apart, I ran into Sarah at a grocery store. She looked tired. Older. Her cart had cheap wine and frozen dinners. She saw me and froze. "Ethan." "Sarah." Awkward silence. "What do you say to someone who destroyed your life?" "How are you?" she asked, and her voice cracked. "Better. Rebuilding. I heard. The company's doing well again." "Getting there." More silence. She looked like she wanted to say something. "Apologize maybe. Explain." But what explanation could possibly matter? "I should go," I said. "Wait." She grabbed my arm. I pulled away. "I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry." I looked at her. Really looked. Saw the consequences of her choices written on her face. The regret that came too late. "I hope you figure things out," I said. And I meant it. Not forgiveness exactly. But not hatred either. Just genuine hope that she'd learn something from the wreckage. I walked away and didn't look back. That night, I got an email from a potential client. Big contract. New beginning. The kind of opportunity that could take the company to the next level. I smiled for the first time in months. A real smile that reached my eyes. 1 year later, I stood at the window of my new office. Bigger space, better location. The company had not only survived but was thriving. We'd landed 3 major contracts, hired 5 new employees, and were finally profitable again. David's trial had ended 6 months ago. 15 years in federal prison. I didn't attend the sentencing. Didn't need to see him one final time. The closure I needed came from rebuilding, not from watching him fall. Sarah had moved to Arizona. Heard she was working as a receptionist, living in a studio apartment. Her sister told mutual friends that Sarah talked about me sometimes. Regretted everything. Wished she could go back and make different choices. But life doesn't work that way. You don't get do-overs. You just get consequences and the chance to learn from them. I'd learned plenty. About trust and naivety. About the difference between being kind and being foolish. About reading people better. About protecting yourself while still remaining open to connection. The hardest lesson was this. Betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. David and Sarah's choices weren't a reflection of my worth. They were a reflection of their character. I'd been naive, yes. Too trusting, definitely. But their decision to lie and steal and destroy? That was on them. I didn't need revenge. Their own choices had given them exactly what they deserved. David was in prison, his reputation destroyed, his future gone. Sarah was alone, struggling, living with the knowledge of what she'd thrown away. Meanwhile, I was here. Free. Rebuilt. Stronger than before. Marcus called me last week. Said he was thinking about writing a book about hotel stories, about moments that changed people's lives. Asked if he could include my story. "Only if you change the names," I said. "And only if you include what I learned." "What's that?" "That sometimes the worst day of your life is actually a gift. It shows you who people really are. Forces you to wake up and pay attention. Gives you a chance to start over and do it right this time." He laughed. "That's a good lesson." "Hard-earned," I said. "Yesterday something happened I didn't expect. I was at a coffee shop working on a proposal when someone sat down across from me. 'Is this seat taken?' she asked. I looked up. Woman in her 30s, kind eyes, genuine smile. Professional clothes, laptop bag over her shoulder. 'It's yours if you want it,' I said. We talked. Just small talk at first. Where she worked, what I did, favorite coffee drinks. Her name was Claire. She was a marketing consultant, recently moved to the area for work. 'You seem familiar,' she said, tilting her head. 'Have we met before?' 'Don't think so. I'd remember.' She laughed. 'That's a line.' 'It's true though.' We exchanged numbers. Made plans to grab dinner next week. Nothing serious, just 2 people seeing where conversation leads. Walking back to my car, I realized something. For the first time in a year, I felt genuinely excited about the future. Not anxious. Not angry. Just curious about what might come next. That's what healing looks like. Not forgetting. Not pretending it never happened. Just being able to imagine tomorrow without the weight of yesterday crushing you. I still think about David sometimes. Wonder if he thinks about me. If he regrets it or if he still believes he was justified somehow. I'll never know, and I'm okay with that. His story ended when he made his choices. Mine continued when I made mine. Sarah texted me once. 3 months ago. Middle of the night message that just said, "I'm sorry. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I needed to say it one more time." I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, but because there was nothing left to say. Sorry doesn't erase 3 years of lies. Sorry doesn't rebuild what was destroyed. Sorry is just a word people use when they finally understand what they've lost. I saved her message though. Not because I need it, but because on days when I start to doubt myself, when I wonder if I could have seen it coming or prevented it, I read it. And I remember that her choices were hers alone. I didn't cause them. Couldn't have stopped them. Could only control how I responded. And I chose to respond by becoming better. Stronger. Wiser. More careful with my trust but not closed off to it. That's the balance I'm still learning. How to protect yourself without building walls so high that nothing good can get through. Richard and I still meet for coffee. He's become something like family. The father figure I needed when my own dad passed years ago. We talk about business, life, the future. Never David. That chapter is closed for both of us. He told me something last month that stuck with me. My son taught you a valuable lesson. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones who teach you the most about yourself. You could have become bitter like my father. Instead you became wise. That's the difference between surviving and thriving. I thought about that a lot. About the choice between surviving and thriving. Between letting betrayal define you and using it to refine you. Tonight, sitting in my apartment with a glass of wine and the city lights stretching out before me, I can honestly say I'm grateful. Not for the betrayal itself, but for what I became after. For the clarity that came from having everything stripped away. For learning that I could lose it all and still be okay. The company name changed 6 months ago. Marsh Consulting Group. Just mine now. No partner to answer to. No one to trust blindly. But also no one to share the victories with, the late-night strategy sessions, the joy of closing a big deal. That's the trade-off. Safety comes at a cost. But so does trust. You just have to decide which cost you're willing to pay. I'm not ready for another serious relationship yet. Maybe someday. Maybe with Claire if dinner goes well and we click the way it seemed we might. Maybe with someone I haven't met yet. Or maybe I'll be happy alone for a while, rebuilding myself before inviting someone else into the construction zone of my life. What I know for sure is this. I'm not the same person who walked down that hotel hallway with Marcus 14 months ago. That man was naive. Blind. Too trusting for his own good. This man? This man pays attention. Reads contracts carefully. Checks facts. Trusts slowly. But he's still capable of trust, and that's important. The betrayal didn't break me so completely that I closed off forever. It just taught me to be smarter about who I let in. The worst day of my life turned into the beginning of my best life. Not because the pain wasn't real or the loss wasn't significant, but because I chose to use it as fuel instead of poison. Chose growth over bitterness. Chose to believe that better things were coming instead of dwelling on what was lost. Some doors close so better ones can open. David and Sarah closed the door on our shared past. And in doing so, they opened a future where I get to define success on my own terms. Build relationships based on genuine trust. Create a life that's authentically mine instead of built on lies. That's the real revenge. Not their prison time or their struggles. But my peace, my happiness, my success. Living well when they expected me to crumble. That's the greatest victory of all. The sun is setting now, painting the sky orange and pink. Tomorrow I have that dinner with Claire. Next week I'm signing the biggest contract of my career. Next month I'm speaking at a business conference about rebuilding after failure. Life didn't end when I discovered the truth. It just began differently than I'd planned. And maybe that's the point. We spend so much time planning the perfect life, building the perfect relationships, trusting the perfect people. But perfection is an illusion. Real life is messy. People disappoint you. Plans fall apart. Trust gets broken. What matters is what you do next. How you pick up the pieces. Whether you use the broken glass to build walls or windows. I chose windows. Chose to still see the light even after experiencing the darkness. Standing here now, whole and healed and genuinely hopeful about tomorrow, I understand something I couldn't have grasped a year ago. The betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was just the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. A better chapter. One where I write the narrative instead of letting others write it for me. David and Sarah are footnotes now. Cautionary tales I'll tell someday to warn others. But they're not the story anymore. They're just the prologue to something greater. I am the story. My resilience. My recovery. My refusal to let their worst define my best. And that story is just getting started. I pick up my phone and text Claire, looking forward to tomorrow. How does 7 work? Her response comes immediately, perfect. Can't wait. 3 words. Simple and genuine. And for the first time in over a year, I feel something light flutter in my chest. Not love. Too soon for that. But hope. Possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, the universe has better plans than the ones that fell apart. I close my laptop and stand at the window watching the city lights blink on one by one. Somewhere out there, David sits in a cell, living with his choices. Somewhere out there, Sarah lives with her regrets. And somewhere out there, countless other people are experiencing their own betrayals, their own devastating revelations, their own worst days. If they could hear me now, I'd tell them this: you will survive. It won't feel like it at first. The pain will be unbearable. The shock will numb you. The anger will consume you. But underneath all that, you're stronger than you know. You'll cry. You'll rage. You'll question everything you thought you knew about people and trust and love. That's normal. That's healing. Let yourself feel it. But don't stay there. Don't let the betrayal become your identity. Don't give the people who hurt you that much power over your future. Instead, use it. Learn from it. Let it teach you about red flags and boundaries and the difference between being open and being foolish. Let it show you who you really are when everything false is stripped away. Because here's the secret nobody tells you. Betrayal reveals truth. It shows people's real character. It forces you to see clearly instead of through the fog of wishful thinking. And while that revelation is brutal, it's also necessary. You can't build a real life on fake foundations. Better to have it all collapse and rebuild on solid ground than to keep living in a beautiful lie. The reconstruction is hard. The loneliest work you'll ever do. But it's worth it. Because what you build from the ruins is actually yours. Not a shared dream that was rotting from the inside. Not a partnership where only one person was actually partnering. Just yours. Authentic and hard-won and real. That's freedom. That's peace. That's victory. My phone buzzes. Unknown number. For a second, my chest tightens with old anxiety. But then I remember, I'm not that person anymore. The one who lives in fear of the next revelation. I'm the person who faces things head-on. I answer. Hello. Mr. Marsh? This is Jennifer from the Boston Business Journal. We're doing a feature on entrepreneurs who've overcome major setbacks. Your name came up as someone with a remarkable comeback story. Would you be interested in being interviewed? I smile. Yes, I think I would. We schedule it for next week. After I hang up, I realize what just happened. My story isn't about the betrayal anymore. It's about the comeback. That's what people want to hear now. Not how I fell, but how I got back up. That shift matters. It means I've moved from victim to victor. From cautionary tale to inspiration. From the man whose life fell apart to the man who rebuilt something better. The interview will probably be hard. Revisiting those dark days, talking about David and Sarah, admitting how blind I was. But I'll do it. Because maybe someone else going through their worst day will read it and realize they can survive too. Maybe some husband discovering his wife's affair will read it and know he's not alone. Maybe some business owner betrayed by a partner will see that the company can be saved. Maybe someone drowning in shock and grief will understand that this feeling isn't permanent. Pain passes. Wounds heal. Life continues. And sometimes it continues better than before. I think that's what Richard's grandfather was trying to say in that letter. Don't let betrayal be the end of your story. Let it be the catalyst for a better beginning. The painful push you needed to become who you were always meant to be. I wasn't meant to be the guy who trusted blindly. Who ignored red flags because confronting them was uncomfortable. Who built his life on assumptions instead of evidence. I was meant to be this guy. The one who learned the hard way. Who came out stronger and wiser. Who can help others avoid his mistakes or survive their own. That's purpose. That's meaning. Taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and transforming it into something that might help someone else. The night is fully dark now. The city pulses with life below. Thousands of people living their own stories. Some of them experiencing their best days. Some of them experiencing their worst. For all of them going through hell, I hope they remember this. Keep walking. Don't stop in the fire. Don't build a house in the ruins. Walk through it. Come out the other side. Because the other side exists. I'm standing on it right now. And the view from here? It's pretty damn good. Tomorrow I'll have dinner with Claire. Maybe it'll lead somewhere. Maybe it won't. Either way I'll be okay. Because my happiness isn't dependent on another person anymore. It's not built on trust that can be betrayed or promises that can be broken. It's built on me. On knowing I survived the worst and came out intact. On understanding my own strength and resilience. On trusting myself even when I can't trust others. That's the real lesson from all of this. You can't control what others do. Can't prevent every betrayal. Can't see every lie coming. But you can control how you respond. How you heal. Who you become after. And I became someone I'm proud of. Someone who didn't let bitterness win. Who chose grace over grudges. Who rebuilt instead of retreating. Someone who can stand at this window, look at his reflection, and actually like the person staring back. That person? He's going to be just fine. Better than fine, actually. He's going to thrive. Thank you so much for following this journey with me. If this story resonated with you, touched your heart, or taught you something valuable, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories of resilience and survival inspire others who are going through their own dark times. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. We share real experiences about love, betrayal, healing, and hope every week. Your support keeps these stories coming and helps build a community where people can find strength in shared experiences. Hit that like button if this story moved you and share it with someone who might need to hear that they can survive their worst day too. Together, we're proving that broken doesn't mean destroyed, and endings can become beautiful new beginnings. See you in the next story. Until then, remember, the best revenge is living well, and the greatest victory is becoming someone you're proud to be.